Way.
Hi. I always go first. Just that's our rule. You can
Okay.
guess. You can guess who's older. I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you if you.
Although
I'm not going to say anything.
that gives it away right there, right? The one who wants to divulge the age is usually the youngest. So anyway, I'm Nancy Harrington, and this is my sister Amy Harrington, and we are the founders of the Passionistas Project. We are sisters, if that's not already obvious, and we started the Passionistas Project out of a deep desire to help elevate the stories of women. So a little background about us: we grew up on the East Coast, but we both had careers in entertainment. And Amy was the vice president of post-production and visual effects at Warner Brothers Studios and worked on movies like Harry Potter and The Matrix, a couple of little movies that you may have heard of. And I had my own graphic design business and our theater company with my husband back in Boston, where we grew up. And he finally got me to move out to Los Angeles. And when I did, I started working at an advertising agency that did the Academy Award campaigns for Miramax. So we were both heavily entrenched in the studio systems, but ready for a new adventure. We didn't know what we wanted that to be, but we knew we wanted to do it together. We knew that we were the people on the planet that we each trusted the most. So we set off down a long and winding road and ended up in the world of celebrity interviewing, where we have done over 1,500 interviews at the Emmys red carpet, archival interviews for the Television Academy and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and all sorts of really fun things. It's especially fun doing them together, interviewing people that we grew up watching and listening to. And then we decided we wanted to use our interviewing skills for something more impactful. So we started the Passionistas Project, started a podcast, and that has evolved into all sorts of things, including currently our online sisterhood, where we offer support and services for women who are following their passions. So that's kind of the short, abridged version of it.
There we have the whole interview in 2 seconds, and we're done.
And we're done.
Oh,
Thank
okay. You're like, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Right. However, interviewing an interviewee, you know that there's more to the story than just the quick little tidbit. But there's a quick bio for you guys, because I do post the bio of my guests. Sometimes, as everyone knows, we all don't just sit there and read every single post or look at bios. And that's why I make my beautiful posters, so that, you know, people can kind of see it and go catch a little title here and there. And then I drop a little bio so that, you know, if someone wants to read it, they can go, oh, okay, cool. This is who's going to be on the show. So now we're going to go into a little bit backwards, because first of all, somebody may be going, what's Miramax? I already know, because I'm a moviegoer, huge moviegoer.
Yeah.
And so audience people, what you may or may not understand is sometimes when you hop into the movie theaters, you will get like the movie trailers, and you'll be sitting there digging into your popcorn and getting comfortable in their seats and getting ready for the big show to come on. And then what you may notice is that, well, back in the day, the curtains would open, and nowadays, after like our lovely trailers and whatever, sometimes there's other images that come across the screen. And usually it's the production company and maybe the directors or whatever, but mostly often the production company. And it may be like a Warner Brothers movie, or it could be a Universal Studios, but this one is Miramax. And it will come across. And if I remember correctly, or it could be a Mandela effect, but I do remember Miramax with the X. I'm thinking that it's like the slate, right? Am I right?
Interesting.
Am I close?
There might have been a version of the logo.
At one point, there was a Miramax logo that had the slate. Yeah.
See?
Wow, that's a good memory. That
Yeah.
is a good memory.
Yeah.
I like.
Impressive.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm a huge moviegoer, and so that's where you would see Miramax. Now, you guys can go into a little bit about which, the most famous films from Miramax. Let's go that way, because I know there's a lot of movies out there, but what are maybe some of the newer ones that people might relate to going, oh yeah, okay, Miramax.
Right. I haven't worked for Miramax for a long time. It's been 20 years, and Miramax has changed hands and is not the same company that it was back then.
Yeah.
And I haven't actually been following what they've been doing recently. Amy, I don't know if you know.
No, and I was actually
Just like
surprised
that.
that they were still around, given
Yeah,
everything.
they are still around, but they have been bought up by one of the bigger studios. I forget which one. It might be Paramount. But I don't quote me on that. But when I was doing Academy Award campaigns for Miramax, it was kind of at their height, and they were doing their biggest movie the year that I was really entrenched with them was Chicago with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger. But they did You Can Count. They did. I think they did Shakespeare in Love, Amy. They did. There's so many movies that I'm blanking. Gangs of New York.
You Can Count on Me was one of them. The one you worked on.
Yeah.
The thing that makes Miramax famous to the non-industry person is that Harvey Weinstein was the head of Miramax. And most people have heard of him in the last 10 years or so. And luckily, Nancy never worked directly with him. But
I didn't work directly with him. I felt the wrath of Harvey just because my boss dealt directly with him, and I never had to meet him in person. She very rarely met him in person, I think. But it was more just unexpected, unrealistic demands and for our time and things like that. But so I don't have any gory details.
Like no.
That he was not a pleasant man to work for. He did not make my life easy with all. It was, it was not accepted directly.
Right. Well, no, because this is part of the story why we leave our jobs, why we want to go somewhere else, right? Because, getting into conversation, I did just quickly Google up Miramax, and they are with Paramount. So there you go. You did good. You did good on your end. I was like, okay, let's just see. Because I, like I said, I remember, I have my favorite movies that I do go and watch every year, usually I'm a huge Universal Films fan because I love Disney. I love that. So I'm more on that end. And, I love the, the trilogies and whatever. So I'm always like, okay, so I'm used to the regular ones, and I haven't seen the Miramax one in quite a while. So I was like, oh, I wonder if, and that's why, because they do merge companies, and then you're like, oh, okay, why that happens. And then it was just like, Disney merged with Marvel. So they, went under an umbrella. So
I don't actually think they're producing movies anymore. I think that Paramount bought their catalog. So all the old movies still exist, but I don't think they're making movies anymore.
Yeah. So if you guys are watching and then you end up watching an older movie and it says Miramax, then you heard it here.
And now you know.
Yeah, exactly. So then we go into a little bit about so you left your company, you left Miramax, and then where was the next stage right after Miramax?
Amy left Warner Brothers, and I left the ad agency that was doing the campaigns for Miramax, and we left because we were helping a friend who was trying to start a cable network.
That did not go better to do.
That did not go anywhere, partly because it was 4 women who were trying to start a cable network about parenting, and none of us had children. I think that was the crux of our problem.
Which we thought was an advantage because we didn't know how anybody could balance starting a cable network and be raising a family of whether they were a man or a woman, because it was such a Herculean task. But
well, it makes sense. But then you're like, okay, usually if you have children, then you can go into something with the topic of children. So, I mean, it works.
We knew a lot of people with children, and we were intending to work with them on it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so then you guys went and helped your friend do like the cable thing. How long are you guys still with them? Or did it last long? You're like, I don't know anything about kids. We're like, that's it, done.
It lasted for about a year, and
Okay.
and that was back in the Ask Jeeves days. And
Oh,
and when we decided to go and help her work on that, there were four of us sitting around a table. And we were like, "How do you start a cable network?" And Nancy typed into Ask Jeeves, "How do you start a cable network?" And this guy, Sheldon the Cable Maven, came up, and it was before like people could email a PDF. And
wow.
Nancy and I went to some weird diner in Santa Monica, California, and met this guy who handed us a printout of a thing he had written about how to start a cable network. Um,
There
so
you go. There's
we were there for about a year, and then we started a couple of companies that were kind of post-production related because that was our background in film. And then we just kind of bounced around. We ended up at a company called Get Back, where we started writing retro content about film, television, music, and culture from 1962 to 1992. And that was when we realized, oh, we can make a living out of our love for pop culture. And so we worked there until they went out of business. And
why do you
really,
think they went out of business?
it was just one of those, website companies that it seemed like, oh, it's so easy to make money having a website. And it's like, no, it's really not.
No.
So
Tell me how.
yeah, so we worked there, but what was great about it was while we were there, we did our very first interview. One day our boss was like, go to, I think it was Universal, go to Universal Studios tomorrow and interview the Cassidy brothers, David, Sean, Patrick, and Ryan were all working on a TV show together. And so Nancy and I went and interviewed
Yeah.
David Cassidy and Sean Cassidy. And it was the first time we'd ever interviewed anybody. And we're super, especially then we were super shy. And all of a sudden we're interviewing people. And it's like, this is never going to work. But we loved it. It was really fun. And then from there, we started doing more interviews, and we ended up, when that company shut down, we ended up starting to do freelance work for the Television Academy. And that's when we started doing these hour-long, multi-hour, like 3-hour-long archival interviews with people like Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Laverne and Shirley. And we really, really discovered this passion. Luckily, we both discovered it at the same time for interviewing people and helping people tell their stories that way. And that led us into the Passionistas Project. So it was a very long and winding road, but it was really fun. And we just kept trying different things until the right thing.
When you guys did your interviews, so did you take turns asking the questions, or what was like the system?
Yeah, so it depends on who we were doing the interview for. So when we do them for ourselves, we switch off. I start, and then Amy asks the next question, and we go back and forth. It's always how we do it. For the Television Academy, they only let us do them one at a time. So we traded off interviews. Right. So I would do one, and then the next time they hired us, she would do it. So so we traded those off, unless there was somebody who like we super wanted to talk to, and it was the other one's turn, and we would bargain with each other.
All right. We never really had to end up doing that, though. I feel like it always worked out.
Yeah. And then red carpets, for a long time, Amy actually shot them. She was behind the camera, and I would do the interview. And then eventually they hired a crew, so then we could trade off doing the interviews. So.
Right. And you're like, yes, finally.
That was fun. But I would take pictures and stuff too while we were shooting film. So that was my perk, was while she was doing the interviews, I got to take pictures. So.
The old roll the camera and film, and hopefully this turns out.
Exactly. Yeah. Can't say it always did, but we tried.
Like, I hope this isn't blurry. Someone's head is like,
hope there's sound.
Right? Oh my goodness. That would be surreal. What were your favorite interviews to do? Yes, we're going to get into your stuff you do now, but I just want to know, what were some of your most favorite fun interviews that you guys each, have memories of? And Amy, you can start this time because no.
Okay. I mean, our all-time favorite, I can speak for Nancy when I say that our all-time favorite interview that we've ever done, we did together, and we did it for the Passionistas Project. We got to interview Dr. Jane Goodall, who has been our lifelong hero.
Ooh.
And so we gave her an award in 2021, and we got to interview her via Zoom, which will go down in our lives as one of the greatest half hours we will ever have. So that was amazing. I think for the TV Academy, I think collectively our favorite interview was Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams, who played Laverne and Shirley, and we got to interview them separately. We interviewed each one of them separately, but then we also got to interview them together. And it was not long. Penny Marshall died probably a year or so after that. So it was really, really special. And then my favorite interview that I got to do by myself for the TV Academy was Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which was amazing. And also for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I got to produce, Nancy and I produced an interview with Mick Jagger. So that was pretty cool to just be in a room with Mick Jagger. So.
Right. It's like surreal, and you're like, oh, what do you say? What do you do? I think, because I've had famous people on my show too, like some that I'm just like, but it's so weird, because I don't know about you guys, but it's like, as soon as like, okay, lights are on, you just don't even think. Like, you're just like in mode. You're like, okay, this question, this question, this question, this question. And then after, I will go back and I'll watch it and go, oh, like, wow.
Yeah, some of it, like, I blacked out through the Jane Goodall one. Like, I've watched it since, and I'm like, I don't remember any of that. But yeah, for the most part, they're just people. You end up just having a conversation. And the archival interviews are intense because they're 3 or 4 hours long. So it's like, and you're kind of in a dark room, and you're just like a foot away from them, and it gets really, some of them get really emotional, and they're like therapy sessions. So it's really cool. It's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun to layer, like, get those layers out of them and go, yeah. And then you really find out who they truly are. And you're like, wow, they're going through a lot of stuff that we go through. Like, I just posted, actually did an interview with, oh my goodness, now the blank. I just posted up a reel, and it was just the same kind of conversation, just about celebrities, how they're just like other people. And we all go through hard, difficult times, and it kind of leads us into what we're really doing at the end. And, we didn't all start as actors. We were doing this, and we grew up in a hard situation or whatever. And then it's just like, you break it down and you're like, wow, they're just like us. And it's a humbling experience. And, you get to be in a room and you get to know them, and you're like, yeah, it's pretty cool. But then you're like, wow, they've got a life story to tell.
Introduce some totally. And the cool thing about the TV Academy interviews is it's people behind the camera too. So like we interviewed like the most prolific female stunt woman ever, and she was fascinating. So we get to talk to these people that are just like doing really interesting, cool things that don't get the glory, but are in the system, so.
Right? It's totally surreal. And you're like, wow, I didn't even know that. But then it's interesting, because then it's all behind the scenes stuff that no one really knows what goes on. And I had a conversation about even just music, how music is produced, and like there's the beat, and like every single process from like just the songwriting into, getting it into your car on the radio. And it's like, you just don't understand until you've been there and whatever. So it's like everything that goes on behind the scenes with doing just an interview. Yeah. Totally. It's crazy. And, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, now I have to do, I'm making my own posters, and I'm posting it up and doing all like the editing and whatnot. And I'm just like, wow, so I don't know. Well, you guys had bigger stars, and you had bigger cameras, and you had to do all that stuff. So what was your process with going and doing your interviews? And you guys can fight over it again. Go ahead.
Well, again, it depended on who was hiring us, or if it was for ourselves. When we did the Television Academy interviews, there was a crew. There was a cameraman, a sound man, a producer, a makeup artist. Sometimes the person would bring their own team of people. And then Amy and I would both go, and one of us was the interviewer and one of us was the researcher. That's how we got to both be there, because usually they didn't let an extra person go. But we always go as a team. So those always had big crews. But when we did interviews on our own, in person, we were our own crew. We would like lug all the gear and set up the camera and the lights, and we did the whole thing. Like we did, professional lighting and sound equipment and everything, but we did it ourselves. So, and one of us would run the camera and one of us would sit in the chair, and we'd both ask questions, but we'd do all of it ourselves. Once in a while, we'd have an intern to help us lug the gear, but
you're the golf caddy. You get
that. And then on red carpets for the Television Academy, eventually they had a crew for that. So they would send somebody with the camera, and we got to just like dress up and be pretty and hold the microphone and ask questions. But for the first, I don't know, 7 or 8 years that we did the red carpet, we shot it as well. So you have to dress up when you do the red carpet, even if you're not on camera. Oh, wow. You have to be in black tie. So women have to wear gowns and heels and all the whole rigmarole. And we would be lugging gear dressed like that. So
in all your glitter, and you're like trying not to rip up your skirt even more than
100-degree heat, because it was always September in LA. There was one year where we almost passed out. It was so hot.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, see, that's what people just don't understand is like, it looks pretty on camera, but you just don't know behind the scenes what's going on and what's happening. And you're just like, wow, it's so surreal to go in there. The person was Kimberly Butler. That's who I did my she was on my show. And then we also got into a bit of photography and, so it was quite the conversations, and then we went into the celebrity business because she's worked with celebrities too, and it's like they're just people like us. So I can imagine. So now it's like you're on the red carpet and you're like seeing all these stars, but you're probably just exhausted from hauling all your gear that you can't be excited to interview them.
Funny, the adrenaline kicks in. Like you get up, it's a long day. We're there for probably 12 hours. We get up really early. We get there super early because we don't want to be stressed and rushed. And, you're out in the heat for a long time. And then you think, how am I going to get through this? I'm exhausted already and it hasn't started yet. And then the carpet opens and the adrenaline just kicks in. And like the next thing you know, the 3 hours is over. Like, it's just like, wow,
where you go. Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's so much fun and so exciting and so energizing. And then you need to sleep for 2 days.
Right.
We usually edit from bed the next day because we're so tired.
Laying in bed going, oh, this is a good one.
Just like pushing buttons, whatever we need to do.
Oh my God. Okay. What was the hardest interview that you've ever had to do? Like, just whether it was heat, whether it was just like you didn't get there on time, or just things were going wrong. What was like the worst one?
I had a few celebrities that were difficult, and I'm not going to name names.
No, you don't have to name names at all. You could just
got a little testy, and one of them actually was like, "I'm done," and walked off. That was scary. I think the one that made me the most nervous was interviewing Chuck Lorre. And for those who don't know, Chuck Lorre is the executive producer behind 2.5 Men and Big Bang Theory and, a million other huge TV shows. And it was about a year or so after Charlie Sheen left 2.5 Men. And he has a reputation as being
difficult. And continuing.
So I was really nervous to do his interview, and I got there, and his assistant told me that he was nervous, and that calmed me down because I was like, okay, he's a human being. He's nervous too.
Right? And you're like,
actually really, really charming, and it was a really fun interview, but I was very nervous. And then when I had to ask him about Charlie Sheen, he was like, are you serious? And I was
Right.
like,
and now was it your question or was it like the company's question, right?
exactly. That's the thing. We're doing this for the Television Academy.
Yeah.
And, you know, it wasn't, the Television Academy does not try to get salacious information out of people. It's very factual. They just want to hear the details of your career. And that's a huge detail of his career. It's not something you can just, you know, pass over. And the way we were instructed, we talked about it with our producer for a long time, and we came upon the question that we asked was, why did Charlie Sheen leave the show? That's all we asked. That's what a normal question that you would ask about any member.
Well, you Google it. You'd be like, why did Charlie Sheen?
Yeah. You know, and anyone who leaves the show mid-show, that's the question you would ask.
Yeah.
So that's what we asked. And he was like, really? Seriously? And I was like, you just need to know. And so
inquiring minds need to know. That's all.
Yeah. So that was my scariest one, I think. How about you, Amy?
I don't remember scary. I mean, the first one is scary just because it was the first one, but it was with Melissa Gilbert, who played Half Pint on Little House on the Prairie, and she couldn't have been more delightful. I had a director once who clearly didn't really want to be interviewed and was nervous about it, and so every question was kind of a one-word answer. And it was very early on in my doing the interviews, and our fantastic producer Karen Herman used to put Post-it notes on our back to like while we were doing. So we'd like get a Post-it note, and it would always get stuck in my hair, and then I'd pull it forward and I'd look at it. And she had she's the first to admit notoriously bad handwriting, and so you'd be like, I don't know what that says, and just like ignore it. But she was just like, stretch it out, just keep. So I think I learned how to ask follow-up questions on that interview.
Yeah, you do.
I had to do.
Right, and I've had guests too. Yeah, I've had those guests too, and it's like, you know, I joke about it when we do our 30-second. Okay, there it is, and I'm like, okay, we're done. But some guests come on, and I always do like a pre-interview Zoom, like a good session of like, okay, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to, you know, promote, whatever, before the shows. And some people are like, you know, they're wonderful. I'm like, oh, this will be such a great show, and they have so much to talk about. And then they get on air, and it's like, and I'm like, and
where'd they go? Where'd they go?
Come on. I'm like, tell me. And so, and you just like, you're excited for them because you know what's in there, but they get shy. And I'm like, just pretend it was just our Zoom session, and you'll be okay. I'm like, it'll be all okay. So moving on now, I want to get into the Passionistas. Who came up with the idea? And like, how did it just go, we're going to do this now? What was the moment? Amy?
Well, Amy, honestly, we both had wanted for a long time to do a podcast, and we weren't sure what to do it about. We didn't want to do just a pop culture podcast. There are so many of them. And then when the Me Too movement started to really heat up and Time's Up, and there was an election here in the United States that was contentious, and we started to get really concerned about women's rights. And so we just, in a moment of pure divine intervention one night, in the middle of the night, had a thought like, oh, our podcast needs to be about women. And so we started, you know, we started our company as the Pop Culture Passionistas. We still are the Pop Culture Passionistas, but in that moment we thought, oh, okay, we need to be the Passionistas Project, and we need to talk to women about what they're passionate about, to inspire other women to follow their passions. And so it really came from that moment. And then we had a really good idea when we started, which was anytime we interviewed somebody, we asked them to nominate someone else. And so as a result, we got introduced to this incredible spider web of women who were doing things that we never would have known about, because we really like to focus on women who aren't getting the spotlight, that aren't the ones that are getting the attention they deserve. So this allowed us the opportunity to meet people that we otherwise wouldn't know how to find. So yeah, and then from there we really wanted to do a Women's Equality Summit. We do an annual virtual Women's Equality Summit. And when we started to brainstorm about that, we realized we wanted to focus on women from marginalized communities who are usually talked about or spoken for, but they don't really get to tell their own stories. And so we wanted to make that a platform for them to talk about their issues, what makes their issues unique, but also what combines us all together in our common struggles, and how if we band together, we can be a stronger force. So it really just came out of this deep desire to support and help women get the attention they deserve.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Because sometimes we look and we're like, I don't know how many times I've got like a girlfriend who is just like, she'll just text me out of the blue and, hey, how's it going? And just has a problem. Or she's excited to start something or whatever. And then I realized, they don't have a platform to go to and share. I mean, sometimes we'll go to Facebook and we'll post something. Oh, this is cool. This is whatever. But then, you realize just sometimes women are lonely in that aspect where they can't go and just talk to somebody about it. They always just go to a closest friend or family or whatever. But then it kind of stops there. There's no follow-up or what are you doing or how are you doing, whatever. And some people just completely don't even follow up at all. They forget about that they're doing something, or they have this burning question, and it's like, that's it. And you're like, well, what happened to that, idea or your podcast or this or that? And then they said, well, maybe they just completely just didn't do it or whatever because there wasn't enough support behind it. So having a good online, and especially nowadays with having it online, it's so easy. And like you said, middle of the night, you're just like come across it. Someone's like, oh, I'm in this group, and you can go on and there's all this support. So with that, tell us a little bit about the actual platform.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what happened. We did our annual summit and we would have these amazing conversations, and then that was it. Like, okay. And we kept thinking like we're missing something. There's a component, there's an element here that's missing. And we finally realized that over the years, everyone kept telling to us that they wish they had what we had, which was that sisterhood, somebody who always had your back, who cheered you on when you had a win, who picked you up when you were down, who you could have fun with, who you could bitch to,
and we all need that.
Totally. That we give them that. And also that did give us the space to continue those conversations that we started on our podcast and on the summit and on these other programs that we were doing. And so it was a place where we could keep having those conversations. So it's on a platform called Circle, which a lot of groups are on now. So if you go onto it, it looks similar to Facebook. It has the same kind of feel as a Facebook page with a thread where people post and comment, but it doesn't have all of the noise of Facebook. It doesn't have ads. It doesn't have social media. It doesn't have people trolling you or giving you a hard time about your opinions or that kind of thing. So it's a really beautiful space where women can come and share their thoughts and get advice and get, help. I need such and such. Does anyone know of anyone who has that? And it's a really great space, and people are kind and supportive. And most of the women in our community are the kind of women that start a conversation with, how can I help you? Rather than what can you do for me?
Yeah.
And we also have courses and workshops and other resources for women too. And it's unlike a lot of women's groups, it's not just business. So we do a lot of business development stuff because a good portion of our women are solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. But we also do personal growth and social impact. So we really focus on all three pillars because we believe that they all go hand in hand. So yeah, what did I forget, Amy?
That was good. You got it.
And
stuck the landing, nailed it.
I'm in the platform, But for me, I haven't really been in there, you know. So what I did was I kind of went in and lurked around and did a little bit of like searching, whatever. And then I, had a lot of emails come in.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
there's a setting for that.
Right. So I did talk to guys about that before, and I was like, there's a lot of emails coming in here. I'm like, I can't keep up. So yeah, you can go on and you can change your email settings. But what I like about it is that it does remind you of events. And also, if someone does post that maybe in a group or something, or if it's just, I don't know, there was something interesting that popped up about one lady who was doing something in the forest, and I was like, oh, this is cute. And I was like, I'm just going to sit back and watch it a little bit. And it was like her beautiful journey of, how she was healing and she was out in the forest, and then she ended up like planting more trees and changing the forest. And I was like, this is pretty cool. So not did it just impact her health, but it impacted the actual forest around her. And then it showed the neighboring forest of her neighbors. And it was, okay, like first her forest had some disease that was going through, and she was trying to figure out, how do I get rid of this bug or do something or, help it. And the other neighboring yard, the disease went through it and just took it right down flat. But her story is so cool because it was like, she was trying to figure out her own life and she was replanting things. It was like she was getting reborn through that situation. But yet, so the forest was also being reborn at the same time, and they were like helping each other. And I was like, that's a beautiful story. So for other women to see that and just know it's not in anything too great out there, it can just be a small, minute thing. But like anything, if you just kind of attend to it and, you're watering it every day and you're doing something, just over time, there's going to be that growth. And I think a lot of people need that, especially women, to know, like we're all in that same situation where it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time, but if we're working together, you can grow and it happens, and it's like, you'll see the difference eventually. And I was, that's what I got through that story. And like I said, I was not on there hardly at all. And it was like really the first thing I saw. And I was like, wow, like it was so impactful, just the one thing. So I was like, okay, cool. And so now, again, I haven't really been on too much, but I want to go around and play around and see what else is out there for all their posts. But there were, I like the events. And I like that you guys like put out an email saying these are the events for this month. So I could go into my own calendar and go, okay, here I can put them in. So all I want to say is if we can have something where it uploads to your calendar, that would be cool. Instead of having to manually go in and write this event and that event.
That's interesting. We can look into that. Yeah,
that would be helpful.
That's actually really helpful. Like any comments that people have, anything that can make it better. The platform actually has a really good technical support, and we can always post like, God, we'd really love to have this feature, and they've addressed features that people have asked for. So that's good to know.
Awesome.
And we're glad that you like the events. The other thing with the events is there's a calendar that you can always check, and if you have an event, you can post it on our calendar. It's not just our events, because we want to promote what other people are doing too. So you can post your podcast, or you can post your summit, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's in person or virtual. We are having people show up in person for each other, which is really fun. We're learning more and more about Passionistas meeting Passionistas. So, but that's a great note, and we'll look into adding, because I love that feature. When I get a calendar invite, I always do that download thing and into my calendar.
Like I just want to put it on my Google Calendar with all my work stuff, because I physically had to go and make like a networking event calendar on my Google work calendar, because I'm like, I have my shows and then I have meet and greets or whatever, but I'm just like, I also want to put my networking stuff in there. So I'm like, okay, my Passionistas, it's like, it's all purple. So like, color coded it. And I was like, okay. So, maybe I'm like weird that way and I'm very OCD, but I'm just like, if something pops up on my calendar, I can go, it's this event. And then if I can go, then I will try and sneak there, because I think the one event that I recently went to with you guys. It was the meetup. And it was my first one, and it just happened that I had the day off, and I was like, oh, I'm going to actually try and get to an event because I haven't been to anything.
That's great. We're so glad you made it. The other thing I have to say that I personally like I know if I weren't the person running the sisterhood, I would like this as a member is, unlike social media, no one's keeping tabs on how many likes you're getting, or the algorithm isn't bumping you up if you get X number of comments. It's like you can do it at your own pace. You can lurk. We have a lot of lurkers, and we're just glad that they're getting the information they want. They don't need to comment. We always say when we do Zooms and stuff, like, if you don't want to talk, you don't have to. Like, we're introverts. We get it. So it's really tailored to people who, they can do what's good for them and without any judgment or with any expectations. And no one's paying attention to how recently you checked in or not. So
I think that's so interesting. That's a good point, because I'm kind of a bit the same where sometimes on Instagram, like, I'm just like, is this person even alive? Or like, I haven't heard from them, because sometimes I've got people that are on Instagram and Facebook. So I can kind of see, and I know, some people like Facebook more than Instagram, which is fair enough. That's fine. But sometimes I hear nothing or I might just have them on Instagram, and I'm like, are you guys okay over there? Or are you drowning? Are you all right? And then some people haven't been posting since 2017 when I first got on it. And I'm like, well, okay, I have to say goodbye because I don't see anything going on. And I want to have, like, I understand some people don't post, and that's okay. I get that. I'm not saying post, but I also like to see a little bit of activity going, they're still around, because I like to see them and I want to support them in their journeys. And then some are so cool where I go on and we've been since 2017, but then it's like they meet their other, and then they move and they have a house and the kids. And I'm like, oh, so it's like a 10-year journey of like their beautiful stories. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And I'm like, okay. And and then they don't
a lot of babies being born and stuff like that.
I'm like, oh. So, but again, going back to, like, I was kind of figuring out the ropes. How does this platform work? And I was like, okay. And then, like you said, you don't have to post anything or do this. And, there's other platforms that are like, you must say welcome, and I'm here and I'm doing this and whatever. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I'll eventually introduce myself, but I'm like, I'm sure a lot of people know who I am. But I'm like, and even this show, I was like, oh, I should have went over and actually posted saying that you guys were coming. I was like, oh, oops.
We'll post a replay. We'll post a link.
And I was like, okay, got it. So, but it's so nice that there's no pressure. You can go in if you can make an event. That's great, because there's other networking groups. If you're not there, they boot you out.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing? Are we growing a community? Are we supporting each other? Or is there going to be, this nagging pressure and whatever? I'm just like, that's the most beautiful thing of the platform, is like, you could be there. You don't have to be there. Come, go, whatever. And it just fits to everyone's lifestyle. And it's like, great, So I love that about it. And like I said, just the one thing, and that's just more recent, because like I said, I had to, I would get the email and then it's like, okay, all of February's events. Yeah. And then I was like, leave my email open and then go on my phone and then write in each event on the days. And I was like, okay, I'm like, this is all right. But I'm like,
no, there's got to be. Yeah, we'll ask Circle. It's the technical stuff is beyond our control, but we'll definitely suggest.
Exactly. You can do what you can do.
Yeah, we never want to.
You don't do my calendar.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all have those friends that you haven't seen them in a few years, and you go out to dinner, and the first thing they say to you is, "When are we going to do this again?" And it's like, we just got here. We're always going to be that friend that you haven't seen in 3 years. And it's like, feels like yesterday, that no time has passed, and whether it's 6 months or 5 years later, it's fine. We're still going to be chill. You know,
awesome.
everybody's so busy.
Right, exactly. So with that, any last little words of wisdom, little tidbits, nuggets, anything you want to share?
Go for it now.
Go. Or Nancy, you want to go first? You can go first this time.
I just think that it's been a pleasure talking to you tonight, and it's really fun. We love hanging out with Passionistas. That's what gets us out of bed every day, and meeting new people and introducing people to each other and being sisters and welcoming people into our sisterhood. And that's what this is all about. So we really appreciate you having us.
You're very welcome.
And you know, you said something earlier that really is at the core of the Passionistas too, which is there are so many women who feel like they're doing it alone. And even though they may have friends and family, they might not always get what their dream project is and why they're pursuing it or what they're passionate about. And Nancy and I are lucky because we have somebody that thinks exactly like us. Like we are just so in sync with each other. We never feel alone. We never feel lost and unsupported. And it's why we built the sisterhood, is because we don't want anybody out there to feel alone. We want you to know that there are people who really want to support you and believe in following your passion and believe in being an entrepreneur or an activist or an artist. Like, we get it, and the people in our community get you, and there is a place where you can come and get that support and not have to feel alone anymore.
Yeah. So. Awesome. That's so wonderful to hear. Because sometimes, you know, we can feel alone. It's true. Yeah. We can have those moments of feeling alone, and you know, just a nice little click away and you're right there. So real quick, Nancy, where can we find the Passionistas Project?
The best way is thepassionistasproject.com. And you can find a link to the sisterhood there and our podcast and all sorts of other great things.
Yeah. And the membership, there's a free tier, so you can join and get to know, you know, the website, poke around. There's premium membership that has other options beyond the basic options, but any woman or gender non-conforming, non-binary person can join for free and check it out and see if it's a good fit for them. So
awesome. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Wonderful, beautiful faces coming on and telling the world about what's going on. And I just love that. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you guys decided to do this project, and, you know, you're helping women out there. It's so beautiful. So thank you very much. And thank you for your time. I know that's everything. So I really do appreciate that from the bottom of my little heart. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. It was so much fun.
You're very welcome. Have a great night, you guys.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Well, there we have another Connected with Cari in the books. There's Nancy and Amy Harrington, the Passionistas sisters. So if you want to go onto their website, poke around and have a see what they're all about, helping other women out there and being very super supportive. And sometimes that's what we need out there, right? And with that, I hope you guys will join us next week for Connected with Cari. I guess that's it. So stay safe. Enjoy the Calgary warm weather that we're having, and I'll see you guys next week.